Thanks for taking the time to listen to our latest content here on the Blood Red channel. Guy here with just a quick message. Do you want the very latest Liverpool FC news directly into your inbox? Well, then sign up to our daily LFC newsletter, which will bring you the breaking news and big events from around Anfield. To subscribe, just go to bit.ly/LFC newsletter. That's bit.ly/LFC newsletter, or click the link in the description of this podcast and pop in your email address. It really is that simple. That link once more, bit.ly/LFC newsletter. Well, thanks for your time, and on with the podcast.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
A change out the top as Peter Moore set to depart and Billy Hogan to take on the role of chief executive at Anfield come September. The Reds rivals making headway in the transfer market. Will Jurgen Klopp's side be left behind? And after a successful stint in South Wales, what next for Rhian Brewster? I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along to Friday's Blood Red podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo, as we get set to get stuck into the week's big talking points out of Anfield, and one very big one indeed coming out this morning. Along for the ride on this sweltering afternoon, Connor Dunn, Caoimhe O'Neill and Matt Addison. Team, how are we all keeping?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good, thanks, Guy.
Yeah, very hot, but apart from that, not too bad.
Yeah,
how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, and it is absolutely cracking flags and very, very hot indeed. But Connor, I come straight to you, and on the real big news today, you've been reacting over and across on the Echo website, and we've already had a video on the YouTube channel this morning explaining the decision right at the top of Anfield, the CEO Peter Moore is to step down in just a month's time.
Yeah, so essentially Peter Moore's contract was a 3-year fixed-term deal, we understand. He was always the man. He's stepping down. Basically, his wife and he both have children back in America, which is where they've come from. He was born in Garston originally, but spent most of his adult life in America. He's going back there for his children and for his family reasons, really. And from what I've been led to believe, this is all really on his terms. This was something that was coming, and it's a very amicable step down. Obviously, this is a big step up for Billy Hogan. Billy Hogan's worked for Liverpool since FSG, since 2004. Came across to Liverpool from Boston in 2012, and so he's been working here a while. But yeah, it's certainly a big deal. And what's really interesting to note actually is that Peter Moore is going to be spending the next month overseeing a transition bid. And normally you'd think a football club, if a chief executive officer was stepping down in any way, shape or form, was unhappy about it, there's no way he'd be helping his new colleague come and, transition into the role. So all seems very amicable, and it's a very interesting split. And I'm sure we'll come on to it, but Hogan was actually the man who brokered the deal between Liverpool and Nike, which is set to begin tomorrow. So he's somebody that obviously has a big vision for Liverpool's future, and it's an exciting one at that.
Yeah, and keep on Peter Moore. We'll get to Billy Hogan and what he could bring to the role. But on Peter Moore, he is a man who is held in high esteem, of course, by Liverpool fans. He's the guy effectively running the operation day to day as the chief executive at Liverpool. And he is a man who will go with, I suppose, a heavy heart for Liverpool fans, because they feel as though they've got to know him very much over the 3 years he's been in the role.
Yeah, I think you just have to check the replies to his tweet that he sent out today. And, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 negative comments. But other than that, there's just hundreds of, really nice replies from Liverpool fans wishing him all the best, because, he has done a sterling job for the past 3 seasons. He come in, FSG come in, have done a great job. But, the times when they have got it wrong, he's held his hands up. And sometimes he's been able to steer them in a way where he understands the fan base and the city, because, he was born here. Anytime you hear him speak, I think he's done the TED Talk. I've been privileged enough to hear him speak. He always speaks about his dad and the city, and the passion, you can just feel it coming off him, So Liverpool have definitely lost someone who completely cares and loves the club. But having said that, like Connor just mentioned, Billy Hogan, they're getting someone great. He's been the managing director. This feels like what is a promotion for him. I don't know how it could be a promotion when you've already got a pretty good job at the club, but hey-ho. But yeah, I think, come back to Peter Moore. I think he's done a great job. He got to know the city in particular. Obviously, like Connor mentioned, he was in America for a long time. He's come back, brought that expertise from the gaming industry into, his passion, which is football. And you read those messages from different companies around Anfield, businesses, just fans, and he got involved in the food bank. I know he's got his own foundation. He was really involved in the club and sort of the wider community. And
Is someone that we've all grown to respect over the 8 years he's been at Anfield. I think it's a big.
Yeah, I was going to mention exactly that, to be fair. So, well played.
Great minds think alike. And but Connor, on sort of even the succession planning from FSG, then it was a 3-year contract. This isn't a case of he's being moved aside. It was always perhaps the thinking and in pipeline. But to be moving out of the position as he does, I suppose the uncertainty of the current situation, you mentioned that month that he's going to be staying on and overseeing Billy Hogan transition into the role himself. Whether it be the end of the season, a transfer market he's got to sort of get to grips with, and all that comes with that, as well as the uncertainty around right now. I suppose Peter Moore staying and helping on will only sort of speed up the process.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. You think what the guys have mentioned there, just how much Peter Moore has done for Liverpool and how affiliated he is with the club. And, that is going to help anybody coming in no end, and include whoever succeeds Billy Hogan into his role. It will have a massive knock-on effect all the way down the club. And it's just so important for Liverpool, really. And I think, as you say, because of the fact this has probably been coming, because he was on a fixed-year deal, they have definitely had a succession plan in place. And the fact they've managed to work out this with Peter Moore, I think his contract was actually supposed to end in June, but they kept him on through the coronavirus pandemic and then kept him on again for this transition period. Shows the standing he holds with FSG first, but also it shows kind of FSG being there at the same time, recognising how good he is and how much he could help somebody just, move into his role and move into the standing that he had at the club. So yeah, I think it's very, very smooth business all around, especially if the club knew that this was happening from quite a time out.
Certainly does seem that case. So let's have a chat then about Billy Hogan. And of course, as you already mentioned before, Connor, I'll come to you though on this, Kiva, that tomorrow, the 1st of August, the Nike kit deal starts. And it sort of feels as though maybe right that the guy who was chief of negotiations there and got the ball rolling with that is going to be the man who will carry Liverpool forward as the chief executive officer into maybe a new age club.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I mentioned there. It feels like a promotion. Yeah, he's already got this amazing job at the club. It definitely does feel like a reward. But then, like Connor mentioned there, this could have been, a 3-year, 5-year plan. Whenever he signed up to be the managing director, FSG might have always knew that, eventually they were sort of shaping him for the role as CEO. So, I think his probably his leadership really helped him in garnering that kit deal. That's like one of the biggest things to happen to Liverpool, the leaders in the field now. It feels like, even though we've seen so many kit leaks and things like this, it does feel like we're on, the eve of something really exciting. And it's not just about like seeing a kit tomorrow, it's about, a sort of a new dawn in a way. Liverpool are finally sort of like, I don't know, New Balance were great, but it just feels like another sort of step in, Barcelona have Nike. You just feel like it's on the sort of level of, it's up there, isn't it? And it does feel like a special sort of moment in the club's history. There's a lot of excitement around the whole court case, wasn't there? Obviously went to High Court, didn't it, in London, and there was, you were sort of sad for New Balance to lose out on it, but then, what a run they've had, Liverpool's most successful calendar year, pretty much. So, they've had a good run, and it does feel really exciting. And, I think the Nike sort of promo they released last night, and Van Dijk was sort of the pictures with Colin Kaepernick, and you kind of think, wow, Nike, those adverts, you've grew up seeing them, and, they are always powerful, moving. I think that, that just sort of made you think this is going to be big, and hopefully going forward, I'm sure next season and the seasons after, Liverpool fans will be delighted with the kits, because I think, Nike are up there, as I've said.
Yeah, I can hear the excitement in voice there, Keith. Before I come to that, better ask Mr. Excited Connor Dunn how excited you are. Obviously, we've seen those leaked kit images, but we do know as of tomorrow the deal with Nike will officially begin. But just how excited you are about all of this kicking off.
Look, it's absolutely massive. It is the biggest kit deal in Liverpool's history. It is arguably, maybe even comfortably, the biggest sportswear brand on the planet. Nike's ambition, Nike's ethos is winning. How could you wish for a better brand to be part of Liverpool right now? You're probably arguing two of the biggest sporting brands on the planet in Liverpool and Nike. It's an amazing deal. Few numbers behind it. Liverpool getting a guaranteed 30 million a year, which is 15 million pound a year less than New Balance. But actually, the add-ons and the exposure that Nike are going to give Liverpool, like the 20% royalties of shirt sales, all of the sports stars that Nike will have wearing this kit, is going to be an absolutely crazy future for Liverpool. I think, obviously, tomorrow when all the announcements happen, there'll be players talking, there'll be the club talking, Nike will be talking, and it'll be incredible, and I can't wait to see it.
No, certainly does seem to be the case. Matt, come to you on Billy Hogan and the fact that, as you alluded to before, he has been immersed in the Liverpool culture. It's not all been fantastic and great under Peter Moore. Of course, there have been issues that have been raised. Of course, the ticket pricing, the furloughing, it hasn't all been plain sailing. But you do hope that Billy Hogan, albeit an American who's come over from Boston with the ownership model, has been around long enough now to really understand and know the culture of the club, crucial fan base.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be put into the position if he wasn't, perfectly intertwined with what the fan base thinks and what the city is all about and that sort of thing. And, I've got written down here some of his achievements at Liverpool so far. You look at, obviously, we've mentioned the Nike. I think he was influential with things like Nivea as well and marketing and commercial things. He was pivotal as part of the sort of main stand expansion, which has been, one of the biggest successes of FSG tenure at Liverpool, I think. So, yeah, you look at all of those things. You look at, what people have been saying about him. There's an interesting piece on the Liverpool Echo website that Chris Beasley has written this morning about, sort of his successes and that sort of things, what he's done at Liverpool, what people have said about him. Every sort of aspect of this job he appears to be absolutely perfectly suited to doing. And, you sort of look at Liverpool now, as Connor said, one of the biggest, if not the biggest teams in the world. Combine that with Nike, combine that with everything else that's going on. We spoke to Kieran Maguire, the football finance expert recently, and he was sort of saying how now, Liverpool are pretty much on the brink of overtaking Manchester United as the biggest revenue makers in the Premier League. That gap has been closing now for 4, 5, 6 years. And, had coronavirus not taken place, I think they probably would have overtaken them here. But certainly, in the next 12, 24 months, something like that, you'd expect that to happen. And I think obviously Peter Moore has played a big role in that sort of thing. But Billy Hogan has been the man really to drive that and make the biggest difference. So, yeah, whatever way you look at it, whether it's, the individual bits of the job, whether it's the numbers and the finances, he's done a fantastic job up to now. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And you'd expect that to continue as he takes on this new role.
We've obviously spoken. Sorry, Guy. We've obviously spoken before on the pod about how Liverpool off the pitch are in really rude financial health, and how you've maybe not seen it from Liverpool before until the last few years. We were one of the first to get brands on the sleeve. We were one of the first to get adverts in. We got a lawnmower sponsor and everything like this. And they are the people, Hogan and Moore, are the people behind this, and probably Hogan in particular, the commercial strategy. He's been responsible for really putting Liverpool, and it's probably quite an American attitude, really, all the sponsorship deals around it. But that no doubt helps the club on the pitch because it's money coming in. And it's just it seems like a good appointment, even despite Moore being such a well-renowned and loved figure as he is.
Yeah, well, for more reaction, then do head to the Liverpool Echo website. There's constantly more and more articles appearing, whether it be tributes to Peter Moore, of course, and his tenure at Liverpool, or what Billy Hogan may well bring to the role. But you spoke there, Connor, about money being brought into the club, and I suppose Jurgen Klopp's probably got an eye on that, hoping that some of that money might trickle its way towards him and Michael Edwards' recruitment team, because I have to say, this week the transfer window got underway on the 27th of July. It's going to run till, I think, the 5th of October is the date of the transfer window closing. And Man City in particular have moved quickly. Chelsea had already obviously tied up a couple of deals. But come to you first, Connor. Are you, I don't know, a bit worried, a bit sceptical that Liverpool aren't at the moment making any moves in the window and some of the rivals are?
Specifically with Liverpool, I think, as you know, we've got until October 5th until the transfer market closes. Liverpool can take a long look at what everybody else is doing And who knows, in a month's time, the coronavirus situation, the financial situation, the financial landscape might be totally different, and Liverpool might be able to go and market it. You've got to fully expect Liverpool to be bringing in a couple of players. There is spaces to fill, an experienced centre-back, possibly a midfielder if Shaqiri goes, particularly obviously with Lallana going as well, maybe a backup to the forward line if it comes in for Rhian. There's certain things, but as we said, there is a long time to go. Got all of August and all of September and a little bit of October before the curtain is drawn on the transfer window and it's slammed shut in traditional fashion. I think particularly...
Have you yellow tie at the ready?
Oh, certainly. I'll tie it around my head like a Karate Kid style. Yeah, in terms of the rivals, in terms of City and Chelsea, I think they were the two we knew and we discussed that were always going to be spending. They're two with the means to spend. If I was Chelsea, I think it's been made a lot of comments been made about Chelsea's forward line, which was doing well anyway, and they've added some more brilliant attacking options, but the defence is shaky at best and one of the worst in the Premier League. So you wouldn't be thinking you'd be screaming for attacking signings at that stage. For City, they obviously went and spent loads of money last year on fullbacks. They're going to spend loads of money this year on fullbacks. That probably tells you about the state they're in. They haven't quite found that perfect balance yet. Whether Nathan Ake from Bournemouth, who looks like he's going to City, is going to be that perfect option for them, remains to be seen. Obviously, he's a talented player, and you can see that. But he's coming from a relegated club to somebody who wants to be challenging for the Premier League. So yeah, it remains to be seen. And I don't think with the signings that have been made so far, I'm particularly worried about Liverpool's position at the top. But I am ever the optimist.
Yeah, no, but Kiva, on the transfer window and how it's playing out at the moment, we always give credit to Liverpool in how they think ahead, and they're always one step ahead. But would it be fair to say maybe that they're playing catch up in terms of what the others have done? Because Chelsea, of course, had that transfer ban. They'd sold Eden Hazard and Alvaro Morata, so they had some money already stashed aside. Manchester City have sold Leroy Sané and therefore have money stashed aside, where only Dejan Lovren's left Liverpool at the moment. We might see another few players depart, which therefore then might raise the money for Liverpool to spend in the window, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I don't think Liverpool playing catch-up. I think Chelsea and Man City are definitely playing catch-up with Liverpool in terms of points. Last season, Liverpool finished years ahead, didn't they? And literally, you think that the City, I don't think they've confirmed them signing Jed Abdi visit Ferran Torres and Nathan Ake. They're not signings that really trouble or worry me in particular. Like Torres is a young lad, I think plays for Valencia. He looks like a talent, but unproven in the Premier League. Nathan Ake proven in the Premier League, but also got relegated this season. So it's kind of like, that's a troubling. We know he's a great defender. He's great in the air. But obviously he got relegated and wasn't able to keep ball up. So you do question that. But, we do know his quality as well. The worry maybe with Chelsea is that he did sign Timo Werner and that he will score 40 goals next season. That is probably Liverpool's only little tiny worry. But then they weren't worried to go and buy him. So did they really think that they needed him? Probably not. I don't think it's a worry yet. Like Connor mentioned, we've got till October to figure these things out. Jurgen Klopp will be, there'll be plans in place. There'll be players that they're looking at. There might even be, discussion talks already going on. I think, obviously, the centre-back is a little bit of an issue. It's going to be difficult to get someone that wants to come in and sort of play fourth choice. Maybe someone young and hungry who has got, the talent to do that. And then it sort of depends on what players are going to leave. We feel like Curtis Jones is probably going to fill in for Lallana's minutes, what he played last season, players like that. So, there are players there. But again, you look at City's squad and the bench sometimes is just ridiculous, isn't it? And you're just thinking, what the hell? Like, Liverpool aren't really spending when you think. I think someone put up a tweet the other day. It might have been Phil Rapp. It was like all the Liverpool defenders. And it was actually like 75 million and then basically massive free, Alexander-Arnold free, Andy Robertson for 8 mil, whoever else. And it was just like hardly anything. And then City's was just like billions, just like ridiculous. So they're just trying to do that again. They throw money at the defence, hoping that it'll figure itself out. But, I think Carragher raised the biggest question with their case. Obviously, will he play in Liverpool? They're both left footers. How will that work out? Then do they play back three? City have got a lot more thinking to do than Liverpool. I think Liverpool are right now in good shape. If the current projection is probably 97 points, 99 points, what we say 98 for next season, we'll average it out. So I don't think Liverpool fans should be too worried at the minute. Obviously, if more players leave, going out the door, Shaqiri, Origi, players like that, you need to start replacing those. But for now, I think it's not really too much of a worry.
No, certainly not. And I have to say, I think you said what everyone's been thinking about Timo Werner. He could well get 40.
In the past, they haven't got it right. And certainly we've seen, as Connor mentioned before, the amount that they've spent just on fullbacks would suggest that they haven't quite got that right yet. And at saving shots, but they've got at least those two, probably a left back as well, before they can challenge Liverpool. And Manchester City as well. I think Ferran Torres could be an excellent signing, but he's essentially a replacement for Leroy Sané, so they've not necessarily improved. They've just sort of swapped one for the other. So, look, it'll be interesting to see how both of those teams get on. But the fact that Liverpool are not desperate to spend and they're not taking any risks financially, actually, I think that's a good thing rather than a bad thing.
You've got to think as well, between the current first 11, which is absolutely world-class and won everything last year, they are between sort of 26, 28, the great majority of them. They've got a good couple of years left at peak. Maybe, you might need a couple of good replacements, strong replacements. But that first 11 is going to challenge any team in the world for at least the next season, at least, without even any hint of optimism in that, because the talent they all have is clear for everyone to see. So I'm not worried.
Yeah, and I have to say as well, just to add something into it, that with such a short break to the start of next season, obviously the transfer window carrying on into a fair bit of the season, as players who are brought in aren't going to have all too long to learn the systems, train with their teammates, gel and bed into a team. Whereas Liverpool, if they don't end up doing too much business, probably only expect anything minor to happen anyway, that actually Liverpool will be ready as a team, as a cohesive unit to go forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think I read the other day, obviously, Borussia Dortmund are keen to figure out if Jadon Sancho's future, whether he's going to United or whatever. Liverpool obviously still being linked with him, but they're keen because I think they return to training on August 10th and they want to, consolidate the squad. And I feel like got the right idea. Klopp will have that same idea, as will most managers in football, to be honest. They want that sort of togetherness straight away, because we're going from one season pretty much into the other. It's gonna we haven't never been here before. This is we've never done this. We don't know what it's gonna be like. Next season could be totally crazy. Compared to how good Liverpool played last season. They want to start from first day back at training. The Premier League winners' medals are in the cupboard now. They've got to focus on what's to come. And I think adding new players doesn't, we've seen with Minamino the struggle he saw in the first few months. It is hard for players to adjust to a team, so you want to get them in early. And that's why Jurgen Klopp is always, he rarely does late business. Klopp, he might do this summer just because of the financial aspects of it, but I think say Chamberlain come in on deadline day, and that's one of the sort of rare late deals. He likes to get things done and sort of, like I said, consolidate the squad and get them playing together, and just, that sort of, I think it sort of helps the players know, right, no one's coming in to take my position. This is all, I've got to fight for that position. Like, they know where they are in the team and what they've got to do to maybe get in the team as well. So I think, this summer now presents us with this awkward, people usually do early business. You don't need to do any business, but what if a couple of things happen, a couple of players leave, it just puts you into sort of uncharted territory, really. But I think, Klopp will be keen to get everyone in and sort of training together. And, this does offer as well a chance for Minamino and Keita to continue the sort of form they were showing at the close of the season as well.
Yeah, and on that point, Matt, I think it's going to be the third and fourth seasons, respectively, at Anfield for Naby Keita and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. There seems to be a fair bit of excitement around what those two players could perhaps offer next season.
Yeah, absolutely, and rightly so. We know how talented both of them are, and obviously both have had injury troubles at certain times. But to be honest, I think the end of this season almost came at the wrong time for Naby Keita, because he seemed to be fit, he seemed to be in form and doing really well. So, yeah, hopefully summer, obviously it's only a 2-week break between the end of the season and the start of pre-season. I suppose that could play into his hands. But you've got to sort of hope that he can sort of just get going exactly where he was at the end of last season, to be honest, because I think, as I say, Liverpool fans are right to be excited, I think, on the sort of evidence of the last few games, particularly of last season. He started to show a little bit more what he could do. We always knew what sort of player he was from seeing him at Leipzig, but we've never quite seen that. I think the last season was as close in a Liverpool shirt to that Leipzig player as what we've had so far. And Chamberlain as well, he's another he almost just needs a run of games, which is not necessarily easy to get in this Liverpool team because there's so many, players to choose from in that midfield area. But he's another one that, he's very much a form player. When he's at it and he gets into a groove and he can sort of start at a few games and maybe get a couple of goals, he does seem to be very much a confidence player. So, yeah, I think all of the Liverpool players will be raring to go, obviously having won the in the last season. But those two in particular, I think, have got a little bit of a point to prove heading into next season, and hopefully they can take that chance.
May come back, may not come back, may go back out on loan somewhere else. Who Liverpool fans have been keeping a close eye on, who might be able to come back into the squad and offer something that he wasn't offering previously.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our first real chance of seeing Brewster in first team competitive action, wasn't it? Obviously scoring goals for youth teams in England and youth teams of Liverpool and flying, and then obviously got a really unfortunate injury. But going down to Swansea, 11 goals, 22 games, scoring in playoff semi-final, he looks like a goal. Everything that Klopp was saying about him looking finisher and looking like a poacher and looking like a striker, you can really, really see that. He's only young, and a few of his finishes, I'm thinking of the long, like 30-yard strike, the one where he turns in the box, volleys it into the roof of the net, a couple of really, really fine finishes. I think that's something different to what Liverpool have right now. A real goal scorer, a real finisher, that number 9 position, a traditional number 9 position, that you'd think about. Not your Bobby number 9, your more Lewandowski number, but. Yes, it's a really exciting time for Brewster because obviously he went to Swansea with a point to prove that he could make it and play in first team football. And he has obviously scored a lot of goals and he couldn't have really grabbed that opportunity much better. So it's interesting to see what Liverpool do with him because he can obviously score goals in the Championship. You've got to think before that loan deal in January, he had hardly played any football and almost came straight into that Swansea team at the level ready to score goals in the Championship, in the top of the Championship as well, scoring goals in the semi-finals and things. So it's interesting to see what they do. Do they loan him out again, hopefully hopefully get some Premier League time for him? Or do they think actually we could probably develop him in the Premier League ourselves when we want to give Firmino a rest, we want to change the system a little bit, have him on the bench, give him some impact minutes throughout the season and see what he can do. It's certainly a massive opportunity for him. And I think he'll be one that Klopp will be taking a very, very close look at when they come back for a bit of pre-season before the actual season starts in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and it is a big dilemma as well, isn't it, Kiva, that you've got this young player who's gone away, scored all these goals. He's probably done exactly everything Jurgen Klopp and Pep Lijnders would have asked for him to do before he went out on loan. And yet now, do Liverpool look to send him maybe to a side in the Premier League next season, but want to make sure that he gets enough opportunities, or will there be an opening for him maybe at Anfield?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think that there's definitely an option there to send him back to Swansea. Obviously he's that coach he's worked with before, and he's got experience now. He's got a good record, 11 goals and 22 appearances. Add 40 appearances next season. How many more goals is he going to bang in? Probably quite a few. He's confident there. He knows the team. I feel like putting him in the Premier League maybe is, it's what happened with Harry Wilson, and he's, impressed. Obviously, Bournemouth go down, but he did impress. You want him sort of in the league that he's hopefully going to be playing at with Liverpool, or do you keep him around? I think then that depends on if the likes of Origi maybe go, and then does he come into that sort of, is he that player then? Does Klopp think he's ready for that? I think, he's proven himself there, definitely. The goals, like Connor said, some of them finishes were some of the best I've seen all season from any player. Just instinct, he just knows where to be. And, the first time I ever seen him was last summer at Prenton Park, and he played the first half. And I'd never played before, and I was so impressed by him, just his movement and everything. And you know, you were sort of hoping that was going to be his season last season. Obviously, things didn't work out for him, and then he goes on loan, and you had that little bit of sort of feeling sorry for him. Obviously, seeing the likes of Nico Williams, Curtis Jones, and Harvey Elliott a little bit getting minutes and indeed Premier League winners medals, and you know, he's out there fighting for something else. And you were hoping maybe if he did win the playoffs with Swansea, then be, you know, the medal, and that would be enough for him. But I definitely think those goals should be enough for him. You know, I think he's almost taken a bigger step than all of those players in a way, because he's stepped out of the comfort zone. He could have easily said to Klopp, you know, I want to stay around because, you know, I want to be a part of this. But he, you know, he's experienced that before. The Club World Cup, I think he was out there, wasn't he? And, you know, to take that step is massive. And now Liverpool have such a big decision. But, you know, I'm just so glad that he's starting to prove himself, because it was, you know, I think the fan base was starting to get a little bit of doubts maybe about his ability. But now, you know, it's clear. It's, you know, he's got a great highlights reel from Swansea. And, you know, the decision to keep him on at Liverpool now, not loan him out, I think would be welcomed as well.
Yeah, I remember speaking to him actually down at the Liberty Stadium after he scored his first goal for Swansea against Wigan, and he is a very driven individual. Matt, I'm sure you'll know well about that as well. And you've written a piece on the Echo today saying what he could potentially offer to Liverpool, and that option, as Connor alluded to, is an actual focal number 9. It's something that Liverpool haven't really had under Jurgen Klopp. Daniel Sturridge did it in bits and pieces, but obviously struggled with injury. But it could be exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. The piece that I wrote that went out this morning sort of made reference to the fact that he was in that England under-17 World Cup winning squad along with Phil Foden, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Jadon Sancho. And, you know, at the time, all 4 of those players in that squad were rated pretty similarly. And, you know, when you think particularly of what Jadon Sancho has gone on to become, Phil Foden now is, you know, potentially going to be David Silva's replacement at Manchester City next season. Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think, is a player that certainly Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool have kept an eye on at certain times. So, yeah, Rhian Brewster has sort of missed out on 12 or 13 months of development compared to those other 3 players because of, you know, his long-term injury. I think it was ankle ligaments that he had for a sustained period of time, really, over the last 3 years, to be missing more than a third of that time to develop. I think it is almost forgotten how talented and how good he is, because, you know, Phil Foden was voted the best player in that tournament, but Rhian Brewster was the top goal scorer, scored 8 goals, showed, you know, exactly the sort of talent that sort of brought him from Chelsea to Liverpool when he was 15. And just looking ahead to next season, it is going to be interesting. I suspect he will probably go out on loan, but I wouldn't be against him staying at Liverpool because, you know, as Connor says, he's a different type of player. I think obviously we've seen, you know, Liverpool now as Premier League champions are going to need to evolve. If they're not going to sign new players, they maybe need to have a look at using the players they've got in a slightly different way. We've seen, you know, in the past, someone like Xherdan Shaqiri's come into the team. They've changed maybe to a 4-2-3-1. If Xherdan Shaqiri isn't going to be here, or he isn't going to play as many minutes as maybe what he has over the last couple of seasons, you know, maybe Rhian Brewster could be the one who came in and allowed Liverpool to change that system, because, you know, you could imagine him as being that focal point in a 4-2-3-1. And, you know, if Jurgen Klopp has used it in the past, potentially that's something he could do in the future too. So it's going to be a very interesting decision this summer, but I certainly don't think Liverpool fans should forget really just how highly rated Rhian Brewster is.
No, and finally on the point, Connor, of potentially loaning him out, what would you feel would aid his development more going into the Premier League, or even if it were staying at Swansea, staying at a level that he's proven he can do it at, scoring goals regularly? And for strikers, I suppose it's all about confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, you obviously don't want to do too much too soon, especially with young players, and especially only the fact he's played half a season after coming through injury. I think with the fact the transfer market stays open until October, and you've probably got 3 or 4 weeks of season, which you can probably keep him at Liverpool at. And if Liverpool have a comfortable couple of games and bringing him on with 20 minutes to go and maybe having a look, because I think that Liverpool afforded an opportunity there, really. You know, as long as things go to plan, you can probably use him in the setup and see how it goes. And then if it doesn't quite work out in those first couple of things, then maybe go back down to the Championship, have one more full season just to blood him essentially, and then come back to Liverpool as a focal you've got to remember he's still so young and still played such little amount of first team football, and experience at that age and at that level counts for so much. So I think if I were Klopp, I would definitely keep him around the squad, seeing what can happen in training, keep him around for the first couple of weeks of the season, try and use him in the games just to see how he gets on, and then sort of go from there, but probably with a view to loan him back out to Swansea, who I know actually do want him again. So that is a helpful place to be.
Yeah, certainly. Another one to keep an eye on. Well, that wraps it up for us here on the Blood Red podcast for the Friday edition. Thanks to Connor Dunn, Keith O'Neill and Matt Addison for joining myself, Guy Clarke, on this Friday edition of the Blood Red podcast. Remember, keep across the Liverpool Echo for all your latest Liverpool FC news of the podcast. Regular updates directly to your email address, so you don't even have to go browsing. But as I say, thanks to the guys for joining me, and thanks to you two for sticking with us and listening in to this edition of the Blood Red podcast. Until next time, bye for now.